Peace, peace. Greetings. This is Melanated News Worldwide, Episode 1, and I am your host, Bandele Yobachi El, also known as Bandele El Amin. And this is the first show of Worldwide News, Melanated Style, where we will be dealing with melanated indigenous news from around the world on a weekly basis. So please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also share this video with as many people as you can. Today's video, we will be sponsored by Wake Up Africa, which is a paperback that can be found on Amazon or indigenousmoors.org, dealing with many of the issues in the melanated communities around the world. So, with that being said, let us go to another ad and then let us begin.
Oh, if they just let me see, or it's just on me, it's showing me the light. Once they set us free, knowledge is the key, guiding me all right, and that feel right.
All right, and we have returned. And so our first news clip of the day will be dealing with our brother in liberation, the Black liberation, the leader Omali Yasitela, which may be known by many who is the leader of the Uhuru movement that is based in Florida. So this will be discussing the present issues with the raiding of their facilities by the FBI and what is going on with that. So let us look at this interview.
Now, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We end today's show looking at another potential political prisoner, this time here in the United States, Omali Yeshitela, the longtime chair of the African People's Socialist Party, leader of the Uhuru movement. In September, a federal jury in Florida found him and 3 others guilty of conspiring with an agent of the Russian government to, quote, sow discord and interfere in U.S. elections. But the jury acquitted the 4 on the most serious charge of acting as agents of a foreign government. Prosecutors had accused them of working on behalf of Russia in a multi-year foreign malign influence campaign here. Omali Yeshitela and his co-defendants, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, have become known as the Uhuru 3. They'll be sentenced next Monday, face up to 5 years in prison. A 4th person, Gazi Kodzo of the Black Hammer Party, has already been sentenced to 5 years probation. Yeshitela's lawyers had argued the government was targeting the African People's Socialist Party over its longtime criticism of U.S. policy at home and abroad. Omali Yeshitela is 83 years old. He joined me this week from Tampa ahead of Monday's sentencing. I asked him his response to the verdict and what he was charged with and acquitted of.
We were charged, as you mentioned earlier, with being Russian agents, and something that they determined, that is the United States government, that began in 2014 or on or about 2014 and extended up until July 29, 2022, according to them. So after 50 years or so, more, 60 years in my instance of working for the liberation of African people, the U.S. government determined that that since 2014, I became an employee, an agent under the direction and control of a foreign government, namely Russia. And then they charged me also, the 3 of us, Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, and I, with being, with conspiracy to work for a foreign government without registering with the Department of Justice, which was an extraordinary charge. And so after a week-long trial or so, the jury examined things that came from more than 2.5 million books in equivalency, 13 terabytes of information that they stole from our devices. A jury determined that we were not Russian agents, and which meant, of course, that they agreed that the only thing we'd ever done is work for the liberation of African people, on the one hand. On the other hand, they convicted us of conspiracy to do something that never happened. And the Russian agent charge carried with it a 10-year prison sentence. And the conspiracy charge carries us, the conviction carries the possibility of a 5-year prison sentence and $250,000 fine. So on December 16th, we'll be going to Tampa, Florida, and we want everybody to come with us to face sentencing for, as they said, conspiring to do something that never happened.
You've long been known as an anti-war activist from Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. In this case, they said that your activism against the U.S. being involved with Ukraine and Russia's invasion of Ukraine was working on behalf of Russia. Can you respond?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous assumption. The fact is, our party has, against every notorious war that the United States government has been involved in, we concluded a long time ago the inability of the United States to engage in a just war. And we were opposed to what they were doing in Vietnam. The United States did in Vietnam. We were opposed to the aggression against Cuba, the aggression against peoples all around the world. And this notion that somehow the Russians had to tell us to be opposed to what's happening in Ukraine is ridiculous for a number of reasons. And one of them being that, generally speaking, the Black liberation movement in this country has historically been opposed to those wars. And that's been a strategic problem for the United States, that even Foreign Affairs, one of the journals of the leading thinking representatives of the ruling class in this country, has complained about affecting in a negative way U.S. foreign policy, because Black people have always been opposed to these wars. And that was true of us, too. So the notion that somehow the Russians had to teach us to do this is ridiculous. And I also think it's important to say that we believe in free speech in a very serious way, that this was an assault on freedom of speech, the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, and that Black people in this country have been in the vanguard of the struggle for the Bill of Rights, for free speech. And that's been absolutely necessary, because when the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, was ratified by the United States Congress in 1791, Black people were property. We had no rights to speak or do anything like that. So who else would fight harder for the right to free speech, the right for freedom of assembly, the Bill of Rights, than Black people? And we've been in the vanguard, and so there's nothing that is new about that. And this assault that they're making on the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, is actually an assault on African people, our agency, our right to have freedom of thought, to convict us of thinking something and what they say we think is up to their interpretation. So we didn't do anything, and that was the foundational charge. The jury said they didn't work for Russia, but they conspired to do something that never happened. So it's a thought crime that they have convicted us for, and we have fought it all along, and we continue to fight that.
So talk about your years of activism. When we last spoke, you said you have attended other international conferences, for example, in Spain, where your expenses were paid by a Spanish NGO. And explain the comparison you made with going to a conference in Russia, and talk about the issues you've raised.
Well, in the indictment, or certainly the press release around the indictment, the United States government declared that we took this expense-paid trip to Moscow. And they made it sound as if somehow there was some lavish occurrence that was paid for by Moscow. When the truth is, it was simple that they paid for our travel, to go to Moscow. They paid for housing while we were in Moscow. And when I say they, I'm talking about a non-governmental organization in Moscow, paid for that, and to attend conferences, international conferences, one of which had to do with a situation of nations of people who were struggling for liberation, for self-determination. and that was in 2015. I took 2 trips to Moscow. And then, they overlooked the fact that I went to Spain in 2017, a non-governmental organization. They paid our transportation. They paid for 3 of us to come. They paid a hefty honorarium for my being there. And it was an international conference with people from all around the world. It had participation from former members of the United Nations and from the Spanish government itself. But that didn't matter. They wanted to take this Moscow thing and act like it was something peculiar. I've traveled to more than 15, 16, 19 different countries, if I'm not mistaken, throughout the world, and as well as to Big Mountain, where the Diné or Navajo people were under assault. And I've done this partially because it's my responsibility to do it, to end the isolation that had occurred of our movement. We were attacked in the 1960s and we were alone, the African Liberation Movement. We were isolated. And I wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. I wanted to win as many people around the world to recognize what our struggle is all about and to have friends for our movement. And so that's part of what this was about. Another aspect of it was showing solidarity to other peoples who were oppressed, the indigenous people. And even as we have this discussion now, it happens with recognition that Leonard Peltier, an indigenous man, has been locked up for nearly 50 years for trying to defend the indigenous people. And he's a political prisoner. So we've been doing this kind of work, and the U.S. government very selectively determined that the trip to Moscow, the connection to a Russian non-governmental organization represented working under the direction and control of a foreign government without notifying the United States government, Department of Justice, that I was doing Attorney General, that I was working for a foreign agent, which is a ridiculous claim.
Omali, talk about how the African People's Socialist Organization got started, how the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, got started.
Well, yeah, the Uhuru movement and the African People's Socialist Party, we stem from the whole struggle for civil rights in the United States. I myself had been active working for voter education and registration in the 1960s. I traveled throughout the state of Florida doing that. And I joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. And SNCC was that bridge between the anti-racist movement for integration and the Black Power anti-colonial movement. And SNCC introduced the whole issue of Black Power to the world. And I was a member of SNCC. And SNCC came under vicious assault, partially because of the Black Power demand. And people were jailed, were arrested, came under attack, and what have you. You may remember at the time Stokely Carmichael, as he was known, married Miriam Makeba, who was an extraordinary, internationally known artist.
Democracy Now!
Oh, excuse me. All right, now. So now we have a little bit more understanding of what's going on with the Black liberation. Like many people, for many years, decades, Black, melanated, African, indigenous organizations have been, spied on and been dismantled due to program COINTELPRO by the FBI. And so you may want to read on this incident. We did a video on this incident a couple of years ago. And so this is right now is what's going on with that case. So this is more up-to-date information. And we're going to continue to bring you present day information from the globe, the melanated communities around the globe. And so now, our next video we will be showing and discussing is dealing with South Africa. And there is food poisoning going on in South Africa, and it is very mysterious. So let's go into this video.
As communities are left on tenterhooks following the food poisoning incidents in the country this year, after more than 20 children died of food poisoning in less than 3 months, the SIU now wants to start their own probe into the matter.
We come in particular, to contribute where there has been malfeasance, where there are indications that there are wrongdoing, there's irregularities. We really want to come in. You can't have companies that have been implicated in wrongdoing, in corrupt activities in some instances, colluding with state officials, continuing to do business with the state.
Most of the incidents are linked to spaza shops that are selling expired foods, some contaminated with poison. Ordinary South Africans also want to see broader investigations. Civil society and some political parties want some Chapter 9 institutions like the Public Protector to also probe the matter.
What is the ingredients that are actually in the goods that have been bought? What is it that is specifically poisoning children? 2, if we find that there has been nefarious activity, people need to be arrested. The food that is brought in from customs, whether it's at the port or through flight, has it been checked? Has it been South African approved by the SABS? And if not, people need to be arrested.
ATM can confirm that President Zungula, following incidents of food poisoning in communities, has formally written to the Public Protector requesting an investigation into the alarming rise of foodborne diseases in South Africa, which are linked to the sale of expired and decayed goods. This ongoing crisis continues to cost our country many lives, especially amongst young people. This dire situation raises critical concerns about the government negligence, particularly within the Department of Health.
Government has set aside about 500 million rand to empower rural, township and spaza shop-related businesses. The SIU wants to ensure that this money is used with integrity and not looted like the COVID-19 funds.
The president announced that there would, in the registration of spaza shops, assisting the South Africans to register and run spaza shops. There's a fund that has been put aside, but already there's public comments that we need to make sure that we mitigate any corruption against that fight. And that's where we come in, to make sure that there's corruption risk assessment done even beforehand. The health sector anti-corruption forum must really step up and come to the fore and really contribute. This is all of us' responsibility.
Meanwhile, the SIU wants to see that whistleblowers who might come forward with information linked to the food poisoning incidents to be well protected. Patricia Fasage, SABC News.
All right. So there is a food poisoning going on. The food poisoning going on in the community. There is concerns around the globe, not just of safe foods, but of good food, healthy foods. This seems to be an issue that is found amongst the world in melanated populations. So this brings us to our next video, which we will be also looking at in dealing with food deserts. So we're now back in the US, where we're going to be looking at Baltimore, and this may be, which it is, something that we see around the world. Particularly, I've seen it in my communities as well. So let us check this out.
Watch this video of Baltimore residents complain about living in a food desert. Check it out.
They can't get fresh stuff, eating out of cans, eating out of corner stores.
It's almost like every other corner is a liquor store.
On this stretch of Monroe Street, liquor stores and convenience stores are on most every corner, but the nearest grocery store is a healthy drive away.
All these people have no cars, they have low income. We could not envision that you would not immediately put a food market back there.
Doc Cheatham remembers the day when the local Stop, Shop, and Save closed its doors for good.
And that was July of 2014. It's been 10 years.
He spent the past decade calling on elected leaders to help bring another food market back to the community. But for 10 years now, this community has remained a desert.
There are no elected officials, whether they federal, city, or state, that lives in the food desert. None of them. None of them. All the city council people, none of them live in the food desert. Federal, none of them. None of them live. So they don't understand the plight that you have not having a food market.
So as you saw and heard there were Black residents that were lamenting about the food deserts, basically saying that a full-fledged grocery store is miles away. Now, it is West Baltimore to be exact, but Brandon Scott is the mayor of Baltimore. The city council, as they talked about, is predominantly Black. And as one brother said, he's been trying for 10 years to get them to pay attention and to care about a food desert. Now, when you live in a food desert, it means that the neighborhood is devoid of any real food, like your fruits and your vegetables and things that you could go into a regular full-fledged grocery store and get. Usually it's convenience stores, liquor stores, where you can get some chips, donuts, juice and stuff that's not healthy, right? But my thing is, why do y'all keep re-electing those people? Is it because they're Black mostly? And as they said, most of them don't even live where the food deserts are. They got grocery stores and all kind of stuff where they live, but y'all vote for them while they go and probably jump in their Mercedes Benz and go to their house on the hill somewhere and they nice Whole Foods and all that. Y'all vote for them as y'all gonna walk to the liquor store to get some nutrition? That ain't their fault. That's your fault. Stop voting for them. Brandon Scott, he talks a good game and stuff, and he just got reelected. What did he do the first term? Oh, you still had food deserts? Then why did you elect him again? Why? See, that's what we got to ourselves, because they could not get in office unless we voted for them. So if you walked into that booth, voted for them because more than likely they're a Democrat, let's keep it a buck. If you did that because they're a Democrat, then that's why you ain't got a grape on your corner to bust, because you didn't care. You only cared that they was Democrat and they was Black. Not that they were the best candidate for the job and that they was going to bring a grocery store over there. They was going to bring some jobs that are sustainable, that's actually going to help people who live there. They were going to improve the way it looks like it does in their part of town. You didn't want that. Now, I'm not saying all of y'all, but enough of y'all to where they're still sitting on those seats. So I'm going to say this: follow the lead of those in Chicago and all the other Black cities that are starting to wake up and say, wait a minute now, our neighborhood, and when I say our, I mean Black people, neighborhood is dilapidated. Our leadership is Black. Our leadership have been in office for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We have not changed them because they're Black. If that is your situation, then you might need to re-strategize and say, okay, they're not the best person for the job. It's actually going to be somebody else that need to be voted out. Vote them out so that you can get somebody in there that can have something you need, nutrition. Like Black people need nutrition. We are the most unhealthy in the United States of America. And that's a lot to do with those disparities, if you will, in grocery stores. So stop doing that to yourself. That is self-inflicted. Send them packing next election season. So anyway, y'all tell me what you think of that. And for more insightful commentary, please subscribe to this.
All right. So very disheartening information. Once again, if you can relate, I know that I've often been able to relate to that. The city that I'm from in Dayton, Ohio, does definitely have food deserts, particularly in the melanated communities. And this is not just nationwide, but as we saw in the previous news clip, this is a situation that seems to be going around the world. and she made mention of us not holding our melanated, so-called black elected officials accountable for these things. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that you stay active in your community and you push for more grocery stores and other things of necessity in the community. So this is going on right now. Okay. So with that being said, let us go to our next video. If you guys please like this video, share this video. Again, I said please like and share this video. Let's go to this next. So the next video we're going to be dealing with Haiti. And if you're not familiar with what is going on in Haiti, Haiti's government is in a disarray. And so what is going on now? We're dealing with gangs that are actually taking over Haiti. And this particular, this happened recently where the Haiti voodoo practitioners are being targeted by a gang member. All right, so let's look at that.
Now let's turn our attention to the Caribbean, where Haiti has been rocked by gang violence again. This weekend, there was a massacre in the capital city of Port-au-Prince. Nearly 200 people were slaughtered with machetes, knives, and guns, all because of a priest who said voodoo was being practiced in a neighborhood. This incident has worsened Haiti's spiraling security crisis, which has left at least 5,000 people dead this year and displaced more than 700,000. But why is the Haitian government failing to control these violent gangs, and what will become of this crisis? Here's a report.
This is Wharf Jeremy, a sprawling slum in Haiti's capital city of Port-au-Prince. It's one of the poorest, most densely populated, and violent neighborhoods in the Caribbean nation. This weekend, it was rocked by a spike in gang violence. The massacre killed at least 184 people, and it was all thanks to a gang leader's personal vendetta. His name is Monel Felix. His son had a fatal illness, so Felix consulted a priest who blamed voodoo for the child's illness. Now, voodoo practices the belief that all living things have spirits. While it's largely misunderstood in Western pop culture, it's one of Haiti's official religions. But even though voodoo is a recognized faith here, it doesn't always have the best reputation. So, on Friday night, Felix set out to seek his supposed revenge against witchcraft, and the killings began. His gang killed at least 60 people in Wharf Jeremy. On Saturday, the child died from the illness. So, grieving or not, gang members paid the neighborhood another visit. They declared round two. Using machetes and knives, they killed dozens of people. Most of the victims were over the age of 60. Older people who practiced voodoo were targeted and slaughtered. In some homes, 5 or 6 people were killed. Wharf Jeremy is a near impenetrable gang stronghold in the capital. The police generally don't go there, and law enforcement is severely lacking. So people from outside the neighborhood, like motorcycle and taxi drivers, intervened to save people, but they too were gunned down and killed. While mutilated bodies are still being burned in the streets, at least 184 people have been declared dead by the UN. But experts predict that the actual figure is much higher, pushing the overall death toll in Haiti's spiraling security crisis to at least 5,000.
The situation is getting much more critical. We've seen a growing number of internally displaced, now getting to over 700,000 in the country.
Haiti has been embroiled in gang violence since early this year, when rival gangs banded together and attacked government institutions, including police stations, prisons, and hospitals. Since then, bloodshed has continued. Last month was particularly deadly for Haiti. 3 U.S. airliners were struck by gunfire at the Port-au-Prince airport. The airport is still closed. Meanwhile, the government has been racked by political infighting, and the UN-backed police force, led by the Kenyan police, is severely under-resourced. So the government has struggled to contain the violent gangs whose power is only growing. And this weekend's massacre is a grim reminder that Haiti's problems are far from over.
It's very sad. Let's pray for our Haitian brothers and sisters. Let's pray that there can be peace restored to that place. You know, if you know anything about Haiti, you know, Haiti has always been targeted by Western powers because of its ability to become independent. You know, the first melanated, so-called black independent country in this hemisphere was Haiti. They freed themselves from slavery, and they have been paying for that ever since. So much blessings and peace and protection to the people of Haiti. So I wanted to, before we get into our last couple of items, I would like to play another ad.
Power in the melanin, she glows. Unified like Malcolm when we close. Pushing through the struggle, yeah, we chose. Solid as a rock, I love it grows. Speaking wisdom just like Dr. Umar knows. Dripping culture in our stance, it shows. On the front lines where that passion roars. Building empires, Kevin Samuels goals. Sitting at the table, he proposed. Melanated love, in America it flows.
All right. So let's get into this next clip. This clip is dealing with what has been going on in Senegal. If you're not familiar with going in Senegal, which was a French colony, and they are still under the yoke of the French, but in recent times, as we will see, things are beginning to change. So let's look at this.
And this time around, it is from Senegal. Senegal has ordered a closure of French military bases, all of them, in the country. Actually, this is what President Faye said announcing this. He said during an interview, French military presence in Senegal is incompatible with the country's sovereignty. Senegal is an independent country. It is a sovereign country, and sovereignty does not accept the presence of military bases in a sovereign country. End quote. Well done, President Faye, well done. A lot of people doubted President Faye after he became president. People were expecting him to move really quickly, and he did in a lot of ways. But some people were like, why aren't you cutting ties with France and with the base? And there you go. There you have it. There's your answer. President Faye has ordered the closure of all French military bases. And this is a win. This is great because if we're going to claim as African countries, we're sovereign countries, we should not accept the presence of foreign military in our land. And not to also forget the reports that we've been hearing, how they're meddling in the politics of the country, how they are actually allegedly supporting the rebel groups and the groups that are creating chaos, how they are not actually helping and making the situation worse in a lot of countries. So if that's the case, why exactly would you want to have these foreign troops on your land? It just does not make sense. It doesn't add up. So we're happy to report that Senegal is closing the French military base in their country. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about this. I am Ongil Zalalam. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
All right. So, great news. You know, the African continent is beginning to finally take off the last bit of shackles on their countries. And, Senegal is one of those countries. They have been under the French occupation. They've been under their French monetary system, and they also have been part of, like they said, their bases. And so now that African countries are truly trying to come into their sovereignty and become actually really sovereign. If you're going to be considered a sovereign country, then you must stand sovereign. And so this is very uplifting news for us around the globe that African countries are becoming free. So very big up to the country. We give thanks and praise for, better leadership. So let us look at this last one. Now, our last news clip of the day is something that's going on, and it has been going on for centuries. But this is showing us that it is very prominent right now today. And this is the Arab nations are very anti-melanated. They seem to have racism. They're very against Africans or melanated people. Maybe some of us have seen this in our own communities, where we have a lot of what you call countries that are not countries, but we have a lot of our own communities that deal with Arab, convenience stores, things of that nature, that you may see this type of thing going on. So let us look at what's really going on in with Arab people. All right, so let's check it.
Says some Arabs are way more anti-black than white people. She said if she fell in love with a black man, it would be the hardest thing to ever do to take him back home because of the backlash that they will receive. She also said that even though she wants her best friend to go to Lebanon, she wants to spare her the horrible experience she might face. I'm assuming her best friend is black. Watch this clip, we'll come back and discuss.
Some Arabs are more racist than white people, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about how my aunt called me Shughl al-Lid when I went to Lebanon. Let's talk about how they tell me to stay out of the sun because I'm already too dark. Let's talk about how I want my best friend to come with me to Lebanon, but I'd rather spare her a terrible experience. Let's talk about how if I fell in love with a black guy and married him, how hard that would be for me, how hard it would be for him, how many hurdles we would both have to jump through, how I really wouldn't want him around my extended family because I wouldn't feel comfortable and he wouldn't feel comfortable. It's really gross. Maybe we should start taking some accountability and stop denying it.
First of all, kudos to the sister for opening up and for being honest. Not a lot of people can be honest about the situation in these Arab countries. And, when it comes to Lebanon and Arab countries, we've talked about it on this channel before. So we know, we've discussed about how anti-black they are and how hard it is for our people to be amongst them, to live amongst them, to work for them, even worse. Like if you're working for them, it's like you are their slave. And we talk about modern day slavery in Lebanon, it's even worse. They don't even see the lives of black people as worthy. Like during the current situation, they were fleeing the war, right? Lebanese people, they were locking their domestic workers in the house when they're fleeing their situation, because guess what? They can't flee with them. Their lives is now, worth it. So they would hide them. They would lock them in the house and leave. That's how they see black people. And she is right. She didn't lie about that. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about this. I am Wangel Zalalem. I'll see you on the next one.
All right. So let's think about that, people. What, how many times have we seen things racist in, the convenience stores that particular Arabs run? We see how Arabs treat us in our communities. It ties back to the food desert. The only things that are really available to people in the melanated communities tend to be convenience stores and very small grocery stores that are run by Arabs. And I personally have seen, dark skin, either Africans or melanated Americans that work in these Arab stores, and the way that they talk to them and treat them takes me to this video. So if you guys have anything to say about it, please leave it in the comment section and we can have a discussion in the comment section. And please be courteous to the channel. There's a lot of trolling going on, and these videos are not for trolling. This channel, particularly Melanated News Worldwide, is here to bring news to melanated people, the present day, up-to-date news that's going on around the world. And with that being said, once again, I appreciate your time and your energy, and I hope to see you next week. And until then, Tuta Nana. Peace and love, people.